Does this sound familiar? You buy a brand new, incredibly healthy, and let's be honest, ridiculously expensive can of food. But your fluffy gourmet takes one sniff, looks at you with silent judgment, and just walks away. We often think, what an attitude, so spoiled. But what if I told you this isn't about being picky, and it's not about being stubborn? The answer to this behavior isn't hidden in your cat's personality, but in its saliva. Yes, really. Right now, inside your cat, there is a tiny biological mechanism that is missing, or rather, broken. And this specific difference is what separates them from us entirely. To understand why a cat is not just a small dog and definitely not a tiny human, we need to take a look at their DNA. Welcome, fellow cat lovers. Here we learn to understand our pets through science and love. Today, we're talking biology. But don't worry, this isn't a boring anatomy lecture. We're going to solve a fascinating evolutionary puzzle. Why do cats react so strangely to carbohydrates? And why are bread, oatmeal, or sweet cookies essentially nutritional junk for them? The key to the mystery is a specific enzyme called amylase. We have it, but they barely do. It seems like a small detail, but this enzyme dictates your cat's health, weight, and even their mood. So get comfortable, grab a coffee, pull your cat onto your lap, and let's dive into the world of a true predator. To understand your modern house cat, you need to forget everything you know about human or dog nutrition. A cat is not just a predator. Science calls them obligate carnivores. It sounds strict, right? That's because it is. It means necessary or bound by nature. You see, a dog is a facultative carnivore. Living alongside humans for thousands of years, a dog's body learned to digest almost anything, including grains and veggies. Dogs are opportunists, but a cat? A cat is an uncompromising hunting machine. Their survival depends directly on nutrients found only in animal tissue. Imagine your cat's ancestors millions of years ago. Their menu consisted of mice, birds, maybe some insects. Were there potatoes on that menu? Wheat? Corn? Of course not. A mouse isn't exactly a carb-heavy meal, and evolution, being a ruthless optimizer, made a simple decision. If you don't eat it, you don't need the tools to digest it. Why waste energy making enzymes you don't use? So the cat lost the ability to effectively break down complex carbohydrates. You might think, okay, so they didn't eat potatoes, big deal. But this evolutionary choice means that a cat's digestion starts completely differently than ours. And the main character in this drama is that enzyme I mentioned, amylase. Let's try a thought experiment. If you take a saltine cracker or a piece of bread and chew it for a while without swallowing, after about a minute, you'll notice a sweet taste. Do you know why? That's your saliva getting to work. It contains alpha amylase. Like a pair of molecular scissors, it starts cutting long starch chains into simple sugars right there in your mouth. For us omnivores, digestion begins before we even swallow. For cats, this starter mechanism simply doesn't exist. Their saliva is practically void of amylase. Nature decided a predator doesn't need to chew and savor carbs. A cat is built differently. Catch the prey, tear off a piece of meat, and swallow. That's it. No pre-processing. Now, the cat's pancreas does produce a tiny bit of amylase, but it's a minuscule amount compared to ours. It's like trying to dig a swimming pool with a plastic spoon. Theoretically possible, but it puts massive strain on the system. Someone might say, but my cat loves bagels. Maybe she evolved? Unfortunately, you can't argue with genetics. Modern science has looked directly at the source code of the cat and found undeniable proof. Geneticists have actually counted the number of gene copies responsible for producing amylase. And this is where it gets interesting. Omnivores, like us or pigs for example, have many copies of this gene in our DNA. Our bodies are programmed to produce this enzyme on an industrial scale. But cats? They have a minimal amount, barely a trace. This isn't a mistake of nature, it's a brilliant adaptation to a meat-based diet. Why keep books in your genetic library that you're never going to read? Millions of years ago, the cat threw away the chapter on how to digest porridge. And that is why when we try to feed cats table scraps or cheap kibble filled with wheat, we are fighting against their nature at a genetic level. By the way, have you noticed that cats are indifferent to candy? If a cat begs for ice cream, they want the fat in the cream, not the sugar. There's a biological reason for this too. Everything about a cat's body screams predator. First, taste. Cats have physically lost the receptors for sweetness. They live in a world where dessert doesn't exist. To them, sugar is just flavorless. This is powerful proof that carbs were never an energy source for them. Second, the gut. A cat's digestive tract is very short. It's an optimized chute for quickly processing meat. Protein is absorbed fast and easily. Plant food, however, requires a long intestine where food can sit, ferment, and slowly break down. Cats don't have that luxury. If carbs do get into their system, they often pass right through or worse, cause trouble without ever being digested. The cat's body can't learn to handle it. Even if you feed them rice for years, their enzyme production won't increase. You can't cheat biochemistry. It would seem we could end the story here. No amylase, carbs are useless. But science loves a curveball. Very recently, thanks to research published in 2025, scientists discovered something amazing. Using ultra-sensitive methods, they actually did find traces of alpha amylase in cat saliva. But its function was completely unexpected. It's not there for food. It turns out that the concentration of this enzyme spikes sharply when a cat experiences stress. Think about a trip to the vet, loud fireworks outside, or a strange dog coming into the house. In that moment, the cat's sympathetic nervous system activates. The fight or flight mode kicks in. And the body dumps amylase into the saliva. Scientists are now starting to view feline amylase not as a digestive juice, but as a biological marker for stress. It's a red alert signal, isn't that ironic? The very thing that helps us digest a donut is, for a cat, a chemical cry for help. So we've established that nature created a perfect hunter who has no need for grains. But how do we, as loving owners, use this knowledge when we're standing in the pet store aisle looking at food labels? It's simple. For a cat, excess carbohydrates aren't just empty calories. They are a ticking time bomb. First, obesity. A cat's body doesn't know how to manage blood sugar spikes from carbs. Anything not burned immediately is instantly stored as fat. Second, carbs can actually block the absorption of protein, the most vital nutrient they need. And third, it destroys their gut health. Excess sugars change the acidity in the intestines and kill off beneficial bacteria, leading to chronic tummy troubles. Here's your homework for today. Pick up your cat's food bag and look at the ingredients. If the first few items are corn, wheat, soy, or vague cereals, know that this is a compromise the manufacturer made to save money, not food designed for a predator. In an ideal world, the first ingredient on a cat's menu should always be meat, fish, or poultry. We often treat our pets like little humans, and that comes from a place of love. But when it comes to nutrition, let's respect them for what they truly are. Perfect, graceful predators whose evolution has been honed over millions of years. By respecting their biology, by skipping the table scraps and choosing the right diet, we give them the greatest gift of all, a long, healthy life without pain or disease. May your living room tigers be full, healthy, and purring by your side tonight. If you enjoyed this peek into the inner world of your cat, please hit that like button. It really helps us explore new topics. And tell me in the comments, what's in your cat's food? Did you find any corn in there? Subscribe so you don't miss our next investigation into our furry friends. See you next time.